Welcome back to Rush Field, your stop for the greatest sport on earth, college football, and we are full swing. It is playoffs. Playoffs start next week. Tomorrow we got Army-Navy, kind of just a filler game. I will give you my prediction on that. I think Navy smacks Army, way covering the spread. Take the over. Take Navy. Go Navy. Anyway, their unis are sick, by the way. Did anyone see the helmets that they released? Apparently, it took 4 hours to paint every single one by hand. That's pretty impressive. But outside of that, doesn't really have any implication on the playoffs, the AAC, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, there's that. Army-Navy. Okay. The buzz about week one. All right, let's talk about week one in the playoffs. Oklahoma, Alabama. I touched on this last time, the last video that I made, but let's kind of reevaluate, kind of gather our thoughts, and tell you exactly what I'm thinking. This is going to be a tough game, and it's going to be a very entertaining game. And I don't know if anyone really saw this, or noticed it, I should say. The winner of this game playing Indiana in the Rose Bowl, the colors are going to be red and white. Whether it's Oklahoma, whether it's Alabama, Indiana's, red and white. I just thought that was interesting. So you're not going to get that really pretty stealth plane photo with two different, end zones. Like the Alabama-Michigan one was really cool to look at. So now you're just going to get Indiana and the winner of Alabama-Oklahoma. I don't know. Kind of anticlimactic a little bit. Not going to lie. It'd be cool to see Miami's logo with Indiana and the Rose Bowl, but I guess Miami's just got to do a little bit better next year. There's a lot of teams that got to do a little bit better. I mean, Alabama's got a lot of improvements to go. And, speaking on that, what has happened to Alabama's offense? I mean, the offense that you saw that was running college football in that middle stretch of the season where it was Georgia, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Tennessee, back-to-back wins. What happened? And I'll tell you what happened. Injuries happened. Personnel happened. Just the way that these offenses are evaluating their key players is changing the dynamic of the game, and it is changing how Ryan Grubb's offense is formulating around Ty Simpson. And Ty's not been posed in the pocket. Composed, I should say. Hasn't been composed in the pocket. And the offensive line is just not giving him the time that he needs to get the dropbacks that you saw earlier in the season. And you saw that heavily opened up against Georgia. But you've seen it leading up to that game. And if you're an Alabama fan and you're watching this happen, your first thought is, what the heck is, Brailsford and Caden Proctor doing? Why aren't they protecting their guy? And don't get me wrong, Georgia's pass rush defense is amazing. Georgia's secondary is just phenomenal. And their defense has only been getting better ever since that game in Alabama, against Alabama. But, I mean, there's no excuse for Ryan Grubb and this Alabama offense to perform atrociously. I mean, when I say atrocious, I was watching Ty Simpson miss passes that were just routine. And routine, I'm talking, 10-yard slants. I don't know. It wasn't the very explosive Heisman candidate that you saw earlier in the season, against these other teams on the road and, in that road stretch. But you can't always replicate that. And when you're going into Norman for a playoff game, you have a little bit more experience about what this Oklahoma offense has done to you, and more specifically what this defense has done to pressure Ty Simpson to make bad decisions, and how their special teams are just good. Oklahoma's a well-rounded team all around, and Brent Venables is ready. They are ready for Alabama to come into Norman next week. They're ready for everything. With so much on the line and nothing really for Oklahoma to lose, it's going to be a really hard game if Alabama's, one, not healthy. That's another thing. They had their injury list going into the SEC championship game was probably about a paragraph long of just different injuries, big names like I mentioned earlier, Josh Cuevas, big one, Jam Miller, LT Overton. Those are just names that stuck out. But that's not to say that team's injuries, all in all, don't affect themselves as, overall. And it was really imminent, and you saw the lack of presence in Josh Cuevas. I think that game, the SEC championship game, could have been a lot closer if he was in there. And he's just been a reliable passer. I mean, Jeremy Bernard has been great throughout the season for Alabama, but Josh Cuevas has been reliable in the amounts of times that he's been targeted from Ty Simpson. And I love Ryan Grubb using him more and more and more as the season's progressed. It's just unfortunate to see him go out with an injury. So perhaps he'll be back. I mean, from the press conferences, Kalen DeBoer and teammates are saying, sounds like they're pretty optimistic about the return of these players, especially Josh Cuevas. So if they can heal their injuries and they can get right, I think that they're going to give Oklahoma a really hard time, and I think that they're going to be good and willing to correct a lot of the mistakes and problems that they had previously in the season when they played Oklahoma. So that is your matchup going into the Rose Bowl. Touching on, Texas A&M, Miami, I think that Mario Cristobal and this Miami offense, they're going to put something together. That they are going to put something together and kind of shock everybody. I would not be surprised if Miami jumps ahead early on, like a 10 to 14 point, lead early on in the game, and Texas A&M comes back to bring it close, kind of like that Notre Dame game where you really thought that Notre Dame had it, and then Texas A&M last minute drive took the lead, took the win. I think you're going to see something similar to that. And, what's college football? What's not to love about it if you don't see something like that? So I'm excited to watch that game. I think that's going to be probably the best game to watch, the most entertaining game. I mean, Kyle Field, College Station, having a playoff game. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, this would be the first playoff game that, to be fair, it's only been 2 years since they've hosted playoff games on campus. So, the birth of these home playoff games and Texas A&M being able to have that in their second year is pretty cool. So that crowd and that atmosphere is going to be absolutely electric. I can't wait to watch that. Those other games, JMU taking on Oregon. Oregon's a 20.5 point favorite. Yeah, that makes sense. Unfortunately, you're not going to see the TCU G5 Cinderella story. TCU is not a G5 school, but it just kind of felt like that when they played Georgia. You're not going to see these schools make a big run for it. I think that they'll keep it close. Do I think that Oregon will cover the spread? Yeah. But I don't think it'll happen until probably later on in the game, maybe third quarter they'll run away with it. But for me, I just haven't seen enough from JMU to really be on board with them. And I've seen a lot from Oregon. I've seen them overcome adversity. The way they beat Iowa, the way they beat, these good teams, and then they lost to Indiana. I think that Oregon is they're made for the playoffs. I mean, Dan Lanning is a great coach. He's been able to will his team into 2 extended playoffs back-to-back, one of which he was the number 1 seed. And if you're an Oregon fan, you really don't want to talk about the Rose Bowl. Yeah. But that was atrocious. I remember watching that and just, Ohio State's up like 20 points before the half, and I'm like, oof, this is going to be a long day if you're an Oregon Duck. But nonetheless, they came back, made it a little close. You would hope, right? And then Ohio State just proved to be that team. Now, the good thing about Oregon and Oregon's path into the playoffs is that their path to the semifinals is very manageable. They take on JMU at home. That's going to be, theoretically a easy win, despite not being a first-round bye. And then they have to go and they play Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech has been hot, But I just think Oregon's talent and personnel that they have is just going to be a little bit too much for Tech to handle. And I say that with all due respect. I mean, when you're comparing these conferences, there's an imbalance of power. It's very obvious, and no one really likes to talk about it because it just makes for bad conversations about respecting conferences. But the Big 12 is not weighted the same as the SEC or the Big 10. The ACC is nowhere near them this year. I mean, in previous years, yes, there have been great teams out of those conferences, but you just don't see it often, and you can't really rely on the data that you've seen to showcase that it's a very strong conference. I mean, Texas Tech throttled BYU, but BYU I never really took to be a powerhouse team despite their record. And despite, playing in their conference championship game, I just didn't see a lot coming out of BYU just based on purely resume. And that has everything to do with the conference. And, maybe it's ignorant to say, but I just don't see the Big 12 having this kind of firepower that these other conferences do. And that being said, you don't really see the full potential of these teams. And when you see them struggle in these like kind of lower end, I'm going to say this, it's going to upset some people, lower end conferences, you never really know what they're capable of. So, that being said, Oregon's path to the semifinals is very manageable, and I think they will get there. Texas Tech will give them a good run, but I don't think that they're going to pull out a win. So, on the flip side of that, Ole Miss, Tulane, the teams have already battled once before. Both teams kind of overcoming a social adversity, if you will, with a lack of a head coach. Lane Kiffin took a job over at LSU. He's not coaching the playoffs. Pete Golding's coaching the playoffs, which is great for the players, great for the morale. And then John Summerall is coaching the Tulane team. And John Summerall just took a job over at Florida, but he will be coaching through the playoffs. Very cool thing that they were doing. And does that have anything to do with, Tulane feeling confident about their run against Ole Miss for a second time with the head coach that they played with already? Probably a little bit. And it probably comes down to, hey, we don't mind. Like, give us a good name, give us a good run, and then we'll see you over at Florida. That's kind of the feeling that you get when you hear that Summerall's coaching through the playoffs and Lane Kiffin's not. And I think also, just when it comes down to like Lane Kiffin taking that LSU job, if you're a player and you are, wanting to train with Lane Kiffin, you're wanting to, get coached by him, and you see his resume and you see the way that he is, someone's scratchy back there. You see the way that he's just jumped around program to program to program, and just the lack of solidarity and communication to his players, his fans, and, the athletic department at Ole Miss. Like, hey, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to Florida? Are you going to LSU? He didn't have an answer. And if you're, a potential recruit to these schools, you're going to flip if you're there for Kiffin. And that's not good for Ole Miss. Ole Miss has developed a really good football team. I mean, they only have one loss. I think people forget that Ole Miss has only lost to Georgia, and Georgia's resume has only gotten better. I mean, they're number 3 in the country for a reason. So, Ole Miss, I think, will handle business in Tulane, but I think that Georgia's defense, the way that they played, especially in the SEC championship game, is just going to come out. And I think those dogs are going to make a very easy appearance into the semifinals. And they would be playing the winner of the Ohio State, Texas A&M, Miami series, if you will. Ohio State has proven, I wouldn't say proven, but I think Ohio State has a lot of issues that they need to work on offensively, and that is a lot to do with the offensive line. I mean, the amount of pressures that Julian Sand had in that Big Ten championship game. I mean, because now you're not playing teams in the Big Ten conference that, are kind of the lower tier of the Big Ten. Your Purdue's, your Rutgers, your Wisconsin. Sorry if you're any one of those fans. I'm not trying to diss you. I'm just speaking facts. 2-10 will not get you into the playoffs. And, for some reason, it'll get you into a fantasy league, consolidation bracket, but it won't get you into the college football playoff being 2-10. So that being said, they are what I would consider the lower tier of those conferences. And I'm not hating on the Big Ten. There's lower tiers of conferences in all different conferences. I mean, the SEC's got Arkansas, Mississippi State. It used to be Vanderbilt, but definitely not the case anymore. Speaking of which, I think Vanderbilt, they're going to be running Tennessee. I just have a feeling that Clark Lee's, recruiting class for this next year is going to be phenomenal. And Vanderbilt could definitely be the new standard of football in the SEC. Obviously you got your Georgias, your Alabamas, your Ole Misses, but when it comes to, competitive teams in the SECs, you really only considered like 2 or 3. LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Auburn had its run, and, a lot of people didn't really question it too much. Tennessee was good, but Vanderbilt's going to be in that conversation of, okay, we're a real team, and we're going to give you a really hard time. We're going to put a lot of pressure on you, and we've got the fan base to do it. They've got a great fan base over in Nashville. They're very strong over there. They're good at carrying goalposts into the river, as we saw last year. But outside of that, I think it's the Vanderbilt Stadium. Those are going to be sold out games. And I wouldn't be surprised if they rebuild that stadium. The Heisman ceremony's tomorrow night. I have a really big feeling that Diego Pavia is going to take it. Fernando Mendoza, amazing quarterback. He's just so poised. He's so wholesome. It's really cool to see a God-carrying quarterback. We saw that with Ty Simpson in all of his interviews. First thing he did was thank God, his family, his friends, his teammates. And you love to see it. You love to see this kind of humble behavior where he's really acknowledging his path, and it's not just him. It's not just the arrogance that comes with it, but there's a good bit of that too. There's people out there. Diego Pavia is a big one. Even though I think that he could win the Heisman, I do feel like his character does need a little bit of development when it comes to his attitude, his cockiness. But that's part of the sport. If you're good, you're going to talk about it. It's going to be it. So Diego Pavia, we'll see. We'll see tomorrow night. I'm excited for these playoffs. And I'm going to give you my full prediction, quick prediction. I'm not going to give you any, synopsis of it, like big synopsis. We'll get there when we get there, if we get there. So this is my official college football playoff prediction. Unless I'm wrong, it didn't happen. Okay. Round 1, we got Alabama and Oklahoma in Norman. I'm going to take Alabama. And, I'm not just saying, I'm not going to give you a synopsis of why I'm taking Alabama. But playoff Bama is a lot different than regular season Bama. And you haven't seen an extended playoff Bama yet. Give me Alabama. Oregon, JMU. I'm going to take Oregon. I already said that. I think they're going to be a really big case to be in the semifinals. Ole Miss, Tulane. I got Ole Miss. And then Texas A&M, Miami. I got Miami with, I don't know if you would call it an upset, but with the win in Kyle Field. Shock the world. Carson Beck, Mario Cristobal, mic drop. All right, now we got the Rose Bowl. Moving in Indiana, Alabama. This is going to be a fireworks show. Right now I got Indiana winning. I think Indiana has been on fire. I love what that team has been doing. Absolutely love it. Roman Hemby, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes first round in the draft. He is a solid running back. He's just been so reliable for that Indiana offense, and Kurt Cignetti's been able to weaponize him like no other. And not only that, but Fernando Mendoza has just been great in the passing game. I can't tell you how many times he's passed the ball in such crucial moments where it was a bit risky. Hey, should he be doing that? That's an interesting play call, but nonetheless, it was a great call. So, yeah, I got Indiana winning out, going in to the semifinals. Oregon, Texas Tech. I got Oregon. I really like their path here. I really like their draw, and I just think Oregon's personnel is just looking really good, and Dan Lanning is in playoff mode, and Dan's going to do Dan things. So give me Oregon Ducks to be in the semifinals. All right, Ole Miss, Georgia. Those dogs are some dogs, and that Georgia defense is no joke. Give me Georgia to beat Ole Miss a second time in the season. Moving on to semifinals. Ohio State, Miami. Now, this one is really, really hard to put my finger on, but give me Ohio State. I mean, I think Ohio State, despite having some flaws, despite, kind of just not playing their best against Indiana, I would say, I think that their talent overall is still good enough to beat a team like Miami. And they're going to have an extra week of rest. They're going to have more time to kind of gauge what's going on. Ryan Day is going to drop something great. So give me Ohio State to win that game. Now we're moving on to the semifinals. We got Indiana taking on Oregon, a rematch. A lot of rematches in this playoff. Give me Indiana to go to the national championship. I like going back into why I think they'd beat Alabama. I just think Indiana is on a roll. Kurt Cignetti's on a roll. I mean, what more could you ask from this Indiana team? Indiana going to the national championship, taking on the winner of Georgia, Ohio State. Guys, what did I say about Ohio State? Problems with good defenses. Georgia, fantastic defense. Give me the dogs to go back to the national championship. This would be the third time in the last, 6 years? Kirby Smart back in the national championship, which he's won 2 of. Just saying. So, what is it, third or fourth time? I can't count. Kirby's been there a couple times. I'll just leave it at that. And then we got Indiana, Georgia. Wow. What a heat-up matchup. I mean, you have 2 amazing defenses with Fernando Mendoza being an elite passer. Gunnar Stockton has been coming into his own. The thing about Gunnar Stockton is that guy's a mobile quarterback. When I look at Gunnar Stockton, I think young Baker Mayfield. And I love what Georgia's been doing. And I love what Indiana's been doing. And for me, it kind of feels like Indiana's on this Cinderella run where it's just, okay, this is the second year under Kurt Cignetti. This is over a 10-win season. Improvement from last year, big improvement from last year. I mean, going undefeated in the regular season, winning the Big Ten championship, first time in, 80 years, 60 years? I don't even know. Long time. They had a stat going on, but I wasn't paying attention. This one's tough. This one's really tough. You could honestly coin flip this game, and I wouldn't be mad if you said one or the other. But I think at the end of the day, the dogs know what's going on in the playoffs. They've been in this position many times. Kirby Smart's been in a national championship many times. And I think the dogs are going to win the national championship. Is that a hot take? I don't know. Maybe. Just say it's an Alabama revenge run. Lost to Alabama at home. Broke the longest home game winning streak at home. And then come back and win the national championship. Yeah, I kind of like that. So, give me the dogs. They are your 2025 national champions. That's it. Unless we're wrong, then this never happened. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Rush the Field. I'll see you guys next time.